It's Sunday, July 14, 2024. We're out for another sail on Seaquestor, and today we're heading out the western way to get outside the Cranberry Islands. It was scorching hot in the harbor, and the wind was off the land. It was, almost 80. And so out here, it's a comfortable, upper 60s. So we're gonna head out. And we don't know exactly where we're going to go. There's a fog bank lying way out there, so we won't go out that far, but we might go out to Great Duck Island. And that is the western tip of Great Cranberry Island, and just ahead of us is the friendship sloop Alice with a load of tourists heading out into the open Atlantic Ocean. Or the Gulf of Maine, at least. Over that way are Gotts Island, and in the distance, Long Island, where the village of Frenchboro is located. And we're just gonna continue out this way for a while and see how things go. It's so much cooler out here, it's really nice. Let's look back. That's where we came from. As you can see, we're not the only ones headed out this way. So we'll keep going until we get out here a bit. The wind was pretty much west in Southwest Harbor, so we don't want to go too far east today, because that will mean either beating or motoring back into Southwest Harbor. So I think we're going to go mostly south. Right now we're going almost due south as we near the end of Great Cranberry Island. Okay, this is the western end of Great Cranberry Island that we're just about to pass. And a nice little cottage right there on the waterfront. The friendship sloop Alice is ahead of us. You can see her through the Dodger. And there's a Catalina, I think a Catalina 38, also sailing out on a parallel course. And we're making about 5 knots. And we're kind of almost close hauled. So it's quite nice out here today. As we head south out into the Gulf of Maine. As soon as we clear this point, we're officially out of the Great Harbor. Actually, we've passed the entrance buoys, so we're probably already officially out. Okay, we have officially cleared the southern edge of Great Cranberry and are out in the Gulf of Maine. The land in the distance is Baker Island. Out this way we have the 2 Duck Islands, and I don't know, the wind out here, I thought it was going to be favorable to sail out there, but I don't know if it will be. It's about another 5 miles out there, so we'll see. If it doesn't look like it's going to be favorable, we may turn and make the downwind run toward Baker and sail around the Cranberry Islands. And if we look off to starboard, that day mark over there, I don't know if you can pick it out, is South Bunker Ledge. And there is the seawall pretty much astern of us, and the peninsula that the Wonderland Trail goes out there on Mount Desert Island, and Gotts Island over there. Now this is the west side of Great Cranberry. As you can see, there's some pretty nice houses on the waterfront here. Some of those are relatively new. I think those 2 right over there are fairly new, and beautiful place to be, although in a big storm it could be a little interesting over there. And we are still headed out. I don't think we're going to make the Duck Islands. They're just, the wind has dropped off, and they are at this speed about an hour and a half from here, and it's 3:30 already, and we'd like to get back so that we can have dinner. We're going to spend the night in an exotic harbor, probably pick up a mooring that belongs to some people we know. So it's going to be a nice time. But we are out in the Gulf of Maine. It's quite calm out here. There's probably about a 2.5 foot long period swell running, but it's so long period that you almost don't notice it. And the wind is pretty light out here. And what usually happens though is at about 5 o'clock, I think that there is a big wind switch in the sky that gets switched over to off. So if we're not back inside the islands by around 5, we might end up motoring back. We just have to wait and see. Also, high tide is a little after 5 today, so a bit before 5, the tide in the Western Way, if we go back in that way, is going to turn and be against us. So we probably will head back so that we are into the Western Way before that. Anyway, it's really nice out here. Baker Island over there, the Duck Islands out there, and lots of water. And it looks like the friendship sloop Alice E has turned back, taken passengers back in after a sail out into the Gulf of Maine. It's really pleasant out here, peaceful and pleasant. I have been out here a few times when it wasn't quite so peaceful, but it's always pleasant. Now that's Baker Island in the distance. It's about 4.5 miles away. We thought about sailing around it, but the wind has gotten quite light out here, and our boat speed is down to 2.5 knots. So that's almost a 2-hour run down there, and probably just not worth it. So I'm a little surprised that the wind has dropped off like it has out here, but that happens sometimes. It's blowing harder in the Great Harbor than it is out in the Gulf of Maine. In the distance over there, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little white building. That is a former life-saving station on Little Cranberry Island. In previous years, I don't know if it still is, it was a weekly rental in the summer. You could rent it and enjoy being right there on the edge of the Gulf of Maine. And that's again the south side of Great Cranberry Island, with Mount Desert Island in the distance behind it. Well, the wind went pretty light out here. We were down under 3 knots. We're making 3-1 now, so we decided to tack around and head back in. That's Gotts Island over there. Long Island with the village of Frenchboro on it out there, with a little bit of mirage effect, making the island look taller than it is. And out there, the Duck Islands. And what we're doing is heading back toward the Western Way, which is the southern entrance to the Great Harbor of Mount Desert Island. And we're going to head in there. I'm just turning up a little to go around a toggled lobster float right here. No point in running over it and ruining our day. Now you can see a couple more of the cottages on the south shore of Great Cranberry over there, and Little Cranberry beyond it with the white life-saving station. And Baker Island, which does have a lighthouse in the middle of it, but the trees have grown up that there are only a few places where you can see it. There's also a lighthouse on Great Duck Island on its southern tip, which is the right hand of the two islands there. I haven't been out by it for years. And over there, that gap is the Bass Harbor Bar. And the Bass Harbor Head lighthouse is just around that right-hand point. Looking north, we have a nice view of Mount Desert Island over Great Cranberry. And the man-set shore of Mount Desert Island over here. And ahead, we're going to go back in the Western Way, which is how we came out into the Gulf of Maine. Another view of the southern edge of Great Cranberry Island as we're headed back in. And there's a large schooner coming out, a modern one, not one of the sort of classic ones that sails around here. And there's the entrance bell for the Western Way. And just to the right of the schooner, there's a green cam, which is the other mark for entering the Western Way. And Mount Desert Island, and in the hazy distance, Swans Island. Well, I haven't seen this boat around here before. It appears to be flying some sort of British Empire flag. It's one of the badged ones, which means it's probably somewhere down in the Caribbean. That's a big, powerful boat. See if I can read the transom. Oh, I can't. Okay, we've entered the Western Way again. That's Great Cranberry Island. We just barely pick out a pretty nice little house on that point. And we're on our way back. From here, we've got about 3.5 miles to go to our destination. And there's another pretty big place back there in the woods that's come into view. So there are some nice homes on Great Cranberry Island. And a little excitement. The Coast Guard just went past us and they pulled up alongside this small boat which is stopped there. I don't know if they lost power or what. The Coast Guard appears to be preparing to render aid. And another look at Great Cranberry Island. Its western shore. And Mount Desert Island ahead as we sail into our destination in an exotic harbor where we will pick up a mooring for the night. Well, as usual, there's a lot more wind in here in the Great Harbor than there was outside. We were down to about 2.5 knots there when we tacked around, so now it's we just hit 6.2 a few seconds ago. We're doing about 5.1, 5.2 now as we head back home for the night. We're not going to the marina though. We're going to spend the night aboard and just have a pleasant night on board, and hopefully it will cool off. As when we got aboard the boat, it was 91 degrees below deck. There's another view of Great Cranberry Island with Little Cranberry in the distance. And Sutton Island behind that little power boat over there. High seas 21, out for a day sail. Oh, we just started the engine, furled the jib, and are motoring up to pick up the mooring in this exotic harbor. In case you've watched my videos before, you may notice this is Southwest Harbor, and the people we know who are letting us use their mooring are Mr. Dunn and Ms. Hill. Just happened to be us. And we're going to spend the night on the mooring tonight and brave the fog in the morning for the quarter-mile run back to the marina. And we got, about maybe 4/10 of a mile to the mooring now. So we'll go in, pick the mooring up, and settle in for the evening. It was a nice sail. Not that far, about 9 miles altogether by the time we get everything picked up. Strongest wind was in the last half mile before we got into Southwest Harbor. We got up over 6.7 knots and had a very pleasant sail. And the wind is blowing pretty good in here, which actually will make it relatively comfortable on the mooring tonight. Okay, I'll come back once we get the mooring picked up. Okay, we're back on the mooring, and I'll just give you a pan around to show you what the view is like from here. Okay, so we had a nice sail. Once we got out of Southwest Harbor, it was nice and cool. It's a little warm in here still, but not horrible. And we're going to spend the night out here on the mooring and take the boat back to the marina in the morning. It's supposed to fog up a little tonight, but it's only a quarter-mile to the marina, so I think I can find it. So we hit 6.7 knots as our peak speed. That was just on the last little bit before we turned into Southwest Harbor. And we sailed to within about, maybe 3 miles of Little Duck Island before wind started dropping off. Boat speed went down to around 2 knots, and we just decided to head back. And it had really good wind for the sail back. It was a single tack sail today. We sailed out, tacked, and came back. So very pleasant sail. And when we got to the mooring, I dropped the mizzen, and I'd kind of forgotten how much nicer it is to drop the mizzen when you're on the mooring, because the boat is pointing directly into the wind, and you don't have to worry about steering the boat or avoiding things, because we're not going anywhere. So nice sail, just under 10 miles. So a pleasant afternoon sail, and I'm looking forward to a pleasant night aboard Seaquestor tonight.